Thank you for joining us today for 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and the personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Justin Todd, who is completing a thesis in architecture at North Dakota State University. We invited him here today to speak about his research and the creation of artifacts in preparation of his defense. The Cathedral of Consciousness, a repository of sleep and dream, reinterprets myth, story, and sight through the impressions of different states of consciousness. What is the difference between waking life and our dream state? What is truly tangible when it comes to the mind? What do we perceive, remember, and reflect on in a world we build as individuals and as a culture? We'll discuss this and more on 10 Minutes with the Artist. So thank you very much, Justin, for joining us on 10 Minutes with the Artist.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So humans for millennia didn't separate their experience of the world into consciousness, subconsciousness, semi-consciousness, unconsciousness. So I was curious why you think that this fragmentation is important to explore now.
I think it's important to explore specifically for that reason. So consciousness has always been sort of a developing aspect of human life. So obviously, at one point, living things were not necessarily conscious of their surroundings, and it has evolved over time. So I think it's interesting to sort of explore where we are now with the potential of kind of seeing where we might end up in terms of consciousness and how we sort of view consciousness and participate with it.
So you used the word "we" several times in your statement, and I was curious if you think that consciousness and subconsciousness brings us together because we all experience it, or do you think that we can't really fully know and connect with each other because we can't really know somebody's personal experience?
Yeah, and I think that gets at sort of the point of my project is it brings people together and also separates. So it's sort of that duality that's present within consciousness. So we all experience the different states of consciousness, but we all experience them differently. So like if I explained a dream to you, it would never mean as much to you as it does to me, but we can still sort of relate to each other in the fact that, you know, maybe we both have very bizarre dreams and we don't know what they mean. So I think there's definitely a presence of both sides that are kind of present in many of the topics that I'm exploring. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering as a follow-up whether or not my sister and I might have a better sort of connection on the subconscious and conscious level than maybe somebody out west that I've never met. Are there degrees that we can relate to people with this consciousness, subconsciousness, unconsciousness, or is it pretty much all the same sort of distance?
I think that has to do mainly with, I guess, in the scenario that you brought up, just being comfortable with the person and understanding the person on a different level. Obviously, you're going to connect better with a person you know versus somebody you don't know, and maybe that goes into the whole idea of being able to read into somebody a bit better and understand the way that they're thinking, which definitely correlates back to understanding somebody on the different levels of consciousness.
We've been trained to understand the world through narrative, through cause and effect. And I was curious if your work defies that or exploits it.
I think again a little bit of both. So it uses narrative to tell a story, but I guess the architecture itself and the artifact sort of get at the they get at telling your story. So the work stands as it is, but it's different for everyone. Everybody experiences it a little differently.
I was curious, like as human beings, we're really reliant on systems for survival. And I'm wondering if, considering our dreams, and if our dreams are really reality, and if reality is really a dream, is like a frivolous pursuit when we're oftentimes just trying to survive.
If dreams are,
Yeah, and this whole conversation about whether or not dreams are reality, or if reality is something else. Um, why is that not like a frivolous pursuit?
I think the best way to answer that would be that we'll never, or we, in my lifetime, there's a good chance we will never know. And I think that opens the possibility to be able to explore both sides without um, without sort of hitting a dead end. We can sort of explore dreaming and waking reality without knowing definitively which one we're actually in, I suppose.
Your work is, at least the work that's on display at the gallery, is made of objects that are in relation to one another. And what does it mean to turn symbols in the mind and sort of experiences that people have, or people experiences that people don't even know that they've had, into actual objects for people to either interact with or to respond to?
I think in the case of what's on display in the gallery is definitely used as a space to open up and create wonder. So the objects present are used to get you into a space quite literally, both mentally and physically, to sort of embody a different um, way of viewing our states of consciousness. So I think the objects itself serve as a way to ground the individual in a topic, versus then uh, versus just being or just seeing them as sort of a piece of art.
So at the end of our conversation, we'd like to ask a few questions about sort of your creative explorations.
Hmm.
So, what time of the day do you feel like you are most creative?
Um, I would say I'm most creative sort of in the late evening. I'm more of a night owl. I think it just helps when everything's sort of mellow and the hustle and bustle of the city isn't kind of distracting you.
Do you listen to music or the radio while you're making?
It totally depends on what I'm making. If it's something that I have to concentrate on, I like just dead silence. But if I'm doing just kind of random tasks, I like music.
Are you reading anything right now?
Um, Lots of philosophy. Trying to get through some of my readings relating to um, the states of consciousness and just kind of the um, overall um, just kind of topic of our thesis.
What would you say was the most challenging thing about working in the medium that you're working in for your artifact?
I think the most challenging part of my artifact was creating something tangible of something very intangible. So our states of consciousness, obviously, there's nothing physical there. So it was very difficult to represent something unphysical with something physical.
So, and then I guess my last question for you would be, what's next?
I think what's next is working in between my artifact and what my architecture will be, going back and forth between the two to sort of bridge the gap of something very abstract and something sort of more concrete.
Okay. Well, thank you, Justin. I'd like to thank our guest, Justin, for his time. And I would like to thank you all for your time and your interest in the professional practice happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you. And for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.